Okay, Assalamualaikum. Salam sejahtera, selamat petang. So, welcome everyone to the briefing session. Can you hear me? Lupa nak check. Hi.
Hello.
Boleh dengar? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Alright,
cool.
Very well.
Alright, so thanks everyone. Okay, so again, welcome to the Iirg Impact-Oriented Interdisciplinary Research Grant Program briefing session for today. I'm Saifu, the current acting coordinator for the research cluster and also the dean of the Frontiers of the Natural World Research Cluster. And I will be briefing you both on the IIRG program and also be giving you a bit of information about FNW or Frontiers of the Natural World. So today it's going to be semi-formal. We're not going to go with too much formality. It's just me talking and also the other cluster deans. So basically, we will go like this. Firstly, I will brief a little bit about the grant itself, IIRG. For some of you, you might be familiar because you may have heard the grant briefing in the previous cycles. But some of you, this will be something new, regardless. Okay, this will be followed by a short presentation by each of the cluster deans, highlighting the different niche and thrust areas within the different research clusters, and also perhaps a little bit about what are the expectations or what kind of areas of research there are in the respective niche and thrust areas. Okay, it'll be a short presentation. This one will be about 20 minutes or so, plus 15 minutes each from the cluster deans regarding the respective research clusters. I think to make the progression of the presentations more smooth, we will leave the questions right after all presenters, all speakers have given their presentations. Okay, and please, when you want to ask any questions, just raise your hand, and we will go through the list one by one. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin. So as I mentioned just now, this is the Impact-Oriented Interdisciplinary Research Grant, or IIRG, Cycle 4 2021. It's not the fourth cycle in 2021, but rather the fourth cycle of IIRG, which is offered in 2021. And the opening date is actually today, the 5th of July, 2021. Okay, moving on. So the idea of the research clusters is to focus on the various niche and thrust areas as listed here. We have the 4 research clusters, which is the social advancement and happiness, health and well-being, frontiers of the natural world, and the innovative industries and sustainability science. And the different niche and thrust areas are listed here. On the left, you have your niche areas, and on the right, you have your respective thrust areas. A little bit about how we define different niche and thrust areas. Niche areas are basically areas within the university where we have already achieved critical mass. In other words, we have the strength, we have the expertise, and we have the experience. These are well-established areas, whereas the thrust areas are identified as areas that are emerging, that we believe, if given the proper incentive and the push these areas will eventually become niche areas. So as the name implies, this is going to be dynamic. The niche and trust areas were derived from an exercise that was done in 2018, I think, where we consulted the various faculties, the various researchers, so on and so forth, to come up and identify what were the niche and trust areas within the University of Malaya. Okay, moving on. So the idea of the IIRG is to develop impactful research projects that addresses real world issues and which are relevant to the society and industry, in other words, our stakeholders, and to hope that you have the various different disciplines interacting and working together, which will eventually drive innovation within the university. Okay, so that's pretty much the spirit of the IIRG. We'll look at that in a bit more detail later on. Now, moving on, IIRG, as the name implies, is interdisciplinary research. So how do we define interdisciplinary research? If you Google it, you are going to get a definition that looks a little bit like that. In other words, a mode of research by teams or individuals that integrates information, data, so on and so forth, from more than one discipline. That's a definition on Google, but I'll go a little more detail to explain what we actually mean. And the aim of the IIRG program is as follows, which is to strengthen the respective niche and thrust areas, encourage interdisciplinary research within the university, and drive impact-oriented research. Okay, moving on, a simplified definition or an explanation of what we mean by single, multi, inter, and transdisciplinary research. Single disciplinary research is the type of research where you look at a problem from the viewpoint of a single discipline, just one. So as that goes, that's going to be single disciplinary research. Multidisciplinary research, on the other hand, is you look at one problem, but you add multiple perspectives. For example, you have somebody doing genomic studies, looking at differences in the genes, and then somebody else do statistics, which are not directly related to that, but contributes to part of the program. There's no real integration between the two disciplines. What we want in IIRG is actually here, the interdisciplinary research, whereby in doing the research, you actually integrate knowledge and methods from different disciplines to solve a common problem. Okay? For example, I may be someone working in drug discovery. I have identified a protein that I know will work as a receptor molecule, for example, for a drug, but I want somebody else to model the drug in silico. So I get computer scientists. We work together to solve the same problem by integrating our two disciplines and doing maybe bioinformatics plus molecular biology. Okay? Whereas the highest level is when you have transdisciplinary research, where by combining more than one discipline, you come up with an entirely new research discipline. For example, in the field of proteomics, where you study the expression of proteins, you integrate bioinformatics, biochemistry, molecular biology, and chemistry into a single discipline. For the IIRG, luckily for everyone, it is up to this point where we hope to get interdisciplinarity within the research, whereby more than one discipline come together and try to solve a common problem. Okay, and to make it even easier to understand, we always look at the carrot analogy or the salad analogy. A single discipline, let's say, is the carrot itself. It's just a carrot, and you know it's a carrot when you look at it. A multidisciplinary type research is where you make a salad with the carrot. You take the carrot, you put onions, you put cucumber, you mix it up, and you find this something a bit more interesting. It's different from just the carrot. It's a carrot plus many, many other things, but you can still differentiate within the salad what is the carrot, which one is the onion, which one is the cucumber, so on and so forth. Whereas in multidisciplinary research, you are actually, for example, with the same analogy, you're cooking a stew where you combine the different ingredients together. Although you can sort of say that this is a carrot, This is a cucumber, but you do have a taste that is actually a mix of the two different vegetables. But at this point, the different disciplines can still be differentiated from one another. And finally, the transdisciplinary research is when you take the carrot and bake a carrot cake, for example, you can no longer see the individual component of the carrot. It is a mix of many, many different ingredients. And from that, you have an entirely new product, which is the cake itself. So I hope that clarifies what is inter, trans, multi, and single disciplinary research. We will be discussing the exact definition with regards to our program later on, but let's just move on for now. Okay, so impact-oriented. The title of the grant is Impact-Oriented Interdisciplinary Research. So what do we mean by impact-oriented? It means exactly that. Whatever research that you propose for the IIRG program should be with the ultimate aim of getting real-world impact. Okay, we're not saying that at the end of the IIRG program, we should already have impact. No, we know that is difficult because often it takes 5-10 years to get any real impact. But what we want you to be able to do is from the beginning of the program, already understand what your impact is going to be, figure out how you will be trying to communicate and realize this impact, and exactly who your impact is going to be reaching. Okay? Like I said, it doesn't have to be right at the end of the program, but you must be clear what the direction of the program is and who is it going to impact. Okay? So moving on, a little bit of a help to define what impact is. Now, we have workshops within the program later on to help you realize the impact and so on and so forth. But just to clarify what we mean by impact, let's look at the following pathway. When you're preparing your proposal, submitting your proposal, so on and so forth, we consider that as input. Well, following the initiation and commencement of your various programs, you may get, you'll be doing several activities within it. You have your research, you have your engagement with your stakeholders, usage of your facilities, experiments, so on and so forth. We call that activities within the research program, following which you may get your project deliverables. Your project deliverables in this case, I'm referring to publications, IPs, patents, policy briefing, so on and so forth. At this point, we call it output. We do not yet call it impact. Okay? You may want to say it's academic impact, that is fine, but for the purpose of the IIRG, we are not ultimately only looking for academic impact. Because we know for Universiti Malaya academics, academic impact is not something that is alien to them. Practically everybody publishes, and we have no issue with that. Okay, we're not saying that academic impact is not important, but we are saying that at the end of the program, you must identify what the real world impact is going to be. And what that is, I'll show you in a bit. Following your outputs, which is your publications, so on and so forth, I think somebody's mic is actually on. Can you get your mic, please? Thank you. You have outcomes. Outcomes can be changes that are affected by your outputs, such as you identify new policies, you form new companies, or you have improved methods for the synthesis of a compound, or things like that. At this point, it is still not yet impact. It is considered as outcome. Okay? And from the outcome, only then will you be able to get impact. And impact is defined as the measurable change that actually takes place from all the previous activities before it. For example, if you have identified certain things that will influence policy in the outcome, and the outcome is taken up by a ministry, that policy is taken up by a ministry, and that policy reduces the number of unemployment in the country, then that is impact. Okay? If you have a new product that supposedly improves road safety as an outcome, and that is implemented and used by many, many people, and that in turn reduces accidents and increases the quality of life, then that is impact. Okay? And usually impact is difficult to measure. So for your purpose, the hope is that at the end of it, you can have a narration of what the impact can be, so on and so forth. So that is impact that we are expecting from the impact-oriented interdisciplinary research grant. But like I said, it is not expected immediately at the end of your program, but rather you must be clear as researchers from the beginning where the program is headed and what your impacts will eventually be. Okay, moving on. And another thing about the IIRG, it's not just about providing funding opportunity. It's not just about allowing researchers to actually get grants to fulfill their KPI. Okay, there is a spirit to the IIRG program itself, and it's pretty much in the following. Firstly, the program is intended to sow the seeds of confidence, to improve the quality of our researchers within the university. Among the skills we hope to instill includes the ability of the applicants to have confidence, to be able to pitch, to write high quality proposals that will help them in the future. Hence, you will notice that the IIRG is not just a call for proposals, it also includes several pre-proposal workshops that will allow you to develop your writing skills, that will allow you to come up with better impact statements. And this year, hopefully, we may be able to also conduct workshops to help you to learn to pitch your proposals better. Okay. Next, we also hope that it will allow you to initiate engagement, both with your collaborators and stakeholders, and also engagement with all other researchers who are outside your field within the university. Okay, so it's not just about money. Again, it's about giving you training, giving you confidence, giving you exposure, and opening up new horizons, new doors for collaboration and also for interdisciplinarity in the research that you carry out. And finally, hope that you will, after having this experience under the IIRG, go big, go outside the university, go for the bigger grants out there, such as the LRGS, TRGS, but mostly grants, international grants, so on and so forth. So that, in a nutshell, is the spirit of the IIRG. So if somebody comes up and asks a question, if I have finished one IIRG's grant and I've completed all the expected output, can I apply for the second IIRG grant? Technically speaking, the answer is yes, but it will not be in the spirit of IIRG. Okay? Because like I said, it's not only about funding opportunities, it's about training, it's about exposure, it's about bringing up confidence and making you ready to go for the big, juicy grants out there, outside of University Malaya. Okay, I hope you understand the spirit of it all. Okay, moving on. Now, back into the program itself, which is the specific criteria for IIRG. So I mentioned before that it has to be interdisciplinary. To make things simple, we define interdisciplinary as the following: two different disciplines from two different faculties. Okay, so that's clearly specified there because sometimes people look for technicality. I urge you, if you're applying for this grant or any other grant, do not look for technicality, go with the spirit of the grant. So two different disciplines, meaning you can't go in, say, one lecturer for medic and one lecturer from science, both are biochemists. You call that two different faculties, yes, but you're not two different disciplines, therefore it's not within the spirit of IIRG, okay? And for each program, there has to be a minimum of 3 sub-programs. It doesn't have to be, I mean, 3 is minimum. You can have 4, 5, or 6, that is up to you. The duration is going to be 24 months, and the maximum ceiling for the sciences is 300,000, and for the non-sciences is 200,000. Now, that being said, the allocation of the grants, once you receive the 300,000 for science, for example, does not have to be 100,000 for one project within the program. It can be in any ratio that you want. It can be 10,000, 10,000, 280,000, or 50,000, 50,000, 200,000. It's okay, it doesn't matter. Just it is entirely up to the researchers. And when you apply for the grants, when you list down your expenditure and what it's going to be for, please be very careful with the technicalities. Because at Cluster, we do not usually reduce funding arbitrarily. We believe that if you ask for money, then you need it, we're going to give you all of it. But if you ask for money where you're not supposed to get funding, for example, if you want to buy a computer, then that will be automatically deducted from your application. Okay, you have to look through the technicality, which is actually available for download on our website. Moving on, so this is just a snapshot of some of the contents of the application form. So in the front page, you'll get your program leader, program title, sub-program leader, so on and so forth. For the sub-programs, you are required to have more than one researcher within each sub-program, at least two. And if you cross-pollinate between the sub-program, meaning sub-program leader 1 is a member of sub-program leader 2, and sub-program leader 2 is the sub-member of sub-program leader 1, it's not a good thing to do. Okay? Preferably at least get 2 members who are exclusive to that sub-program alone. Okay? And you are also required to actually select any one of these, either a niche area or thrust area from whichever cluster you believe your proposal fits well or fits best under. Just select one. Whoa. Okay? And then, of course, you're required to come with an executive summary. And most importantly, when we look at your proposals and evaluate them, we look at the linkages between the sub-programs. Remember that this is supposed to be interdisciplinary research. We do not want 3 sub-programs that come in apparently under one program, but there is no link. There is no communication between the 3 sub-programs. The idea is that the 3 sub-programs must be contributing towards solving a problem that otherwise cannot be solved individually. Okay? And of course, we're going to be looking at the quality of research, so on and so forth. That one I don't think we'll have to go through too much detail. Moving on. Okay. Right. And something that we need to discuss as well is the targeted research output. We have divided it into 2 different output categories, academic output and non-academic output. And you must select one from each category. Okay, so academic outputs are all these things, ISI, IPR, so on and so forth. And non-academic outputs are all of these things. Okay, moving on. Right, about the impact narrative. I have already briefly described what we mean by impact just now. Here we have an example. This is actually attached in the application form of how you can come up with an impact narrative. For example, as researchers, you may want to ask, what could my research actually change? Whom could my research benefit? And from that, come up with how you actually make that happen, and then identify the potential routes for impact. Okay, from that, you should be able to determine who will actually use your research, whatever results that you have, who will take it up outside of academia. And if you can identify that, then you should be able to identify what the impact of your research is going to be. Okay? To help you out, we've also come up with this neat little table that you can fill up to actually come up with an impact narrative or an impact statement. Okay, I won't go into details. I suggest that again, when you actually download the application form, go through this. If you have any issues, anything that are unclear, of course, you can bring it up to us directly, or you can attend one of the impact writing workshop, which is usually organized as a pre-proposal workshop. Okay, moving on. Some additional information. We ignore that. Sorry, my bad. Let me see. You must include your latest CV and researcher's profile. Templates will be provided, and also you also must provide a graphical abstract and also clear-cut objectives within your proposals. Now, the graphical abstracts and the proposals are actually going to be used by the research cluster to promote your research to potential stakeholders. The research clusters, for your information, are actively engaging with various stakeholders. They can be industry, they can be government agencies, they can be ministries. And often we get this opportunity to send in proposals or experts in specific fields. Expert is fine, but it doesn't really tell us in detail what you do. So with these graphical abstracts and also the lay abstract, which also be requesting, it allows us to better identify which researcher and which research can be pushed forward in our engagement activities. So, in other words, if you do this well, then it actually gives you more visibility and better opportunity of finding future funding whenever it comes along. Okay, moving on. With regards to your objectives, it's classical. It has to be SMART objectives, as specific, significant, stretching, and measurable, so on and so forth. I'm not going to go through that. And that the objectives must be of this nature. Okay. Allocation. There are some limitations to your allocations, and this is the ones that I'm highlighting. For salary and wages, the maximum allowed allocation is 30,000 per year. And by requirement, each sub-program or sub-project must hire at least one RA. And for traveling, you're only allowed to use the money for field work. And of course, you cannot purchase any equipment. Okay? And research output, such as publications, patents, whatever it is, will only be accepted if the acceptance of the output is after the time the grant has been awarded, and also the output is relevant to the project or program that is approved. Again, like I said, with any grant proposal, this is a given. We have in the past received some listed output that are unrelated to the project and was actually, for example, a paper that was published before the grant was awarded. So again, I urge you, please remain within the spirit of IRRG, the spirit of any funding. Okay? Don't go for technicalities because it reflects very, very badly on you. Do it in the spirit of the work. Moving on, we have added additional requirements. They're not too tough. Firstly, we are now requesting that you produce a promotional video at the end of your project, one 1 minute video and one 3 minute video. The idea is, again, we will be helping you out by using these promotional videos as a tool to market your research, to market your experience and expertise to external stakeholders. And then, of course, one of the other requirements, because I said that one of the main reasons we have IRG is that hopefully at the end of it, you have something to work with and pitch further to the more lucrative grants such as LRGS and TRGS. As such, on the 21st month of your project, you are requested or required, actually not requested, to have ready for submission a proposal for external funding as a continuation of your IIRG work. And do note that if you do not fulfill all the required research outputs, you may be barred from any internal grants for a period of up to 3 years. Okay. And some highlights, whatever that you apply, please fulfill all requirements in the Safety Research Handbook. If you don't, your proposals will be technically knocked out. And you must also, just read through this. This is just some standard items. You have to read through the guidelines. And you must, of course, fulfill all requirements of research ethics for people working with human participants, human samples, so on and so forth. Not just human, any samples requires ethical approval, so on and so forth. Okay, right. Oh, sorry, forgot. All related documents can be downloaded at the Research Cluster website. Okay, moving on. This is just a snapshot of the website, and you can actually download all the necessary documents from our website. Okay. Somebody's mic is on. Could you please mute it? Thank you. And again, after filling out your form, you will have a checklist that you have to go through just to ensure, make sure that you have gone through the checklist, because after submission, if there are anything missing, we will have to give you a technical knockout. But of course, our officers will be waiting, will be double checking your submission to ensure that everything is in order and request if necessary. Next, again, more checklists. And finally, this is the timeline for our IRG 2021. Announcement is today, and submission is expected before or on the 6th of September 2021. And let me just confirm that there will not be any extensions. None, yeah, we have never extended our deadline, so we will not do that as well. And all the workshop towards improving your applications will be conducted between these 2 dates, probably in the month of July and August. Okay. Then you will have your first round evaluation, where we have the technical knockouts. There are very, very few technical knockouts. And from the first round evaluation, you will be shortlisted for a full desktop evaluation, peer review evaluation. It's double blind, and the dates is given there. And after the peer review evaluation, okay, after the peer review evaluation, shortlisted candidates will be invited for a pitch your proposal session. And after that, final evaluation, hopefully, if you are good enough, we will be announcing the successful results in December, on the 1st of December 2021, and the awards itself will be in December this year. Okay, so fireworks is supposed to be animated, but for whatever reason, it's not moving, so that's okay. Right, a little bit about this one. We'll not look at that for now. Oh, okay, tak apa. So a bit about technicality. The most important things that will be looked at during the evaluation process is the executive summary, the linkages between the sub-programs, the quality of the research, and also, very importantly, the research impact itself. So do not leave any of those out in your proposal. Make sure they're strong, make sure they're solid. Okay. As for the pitch and proposal session, it usually is held in the following format. Each PI meaning the program leader, is required to pitch a proposal for 3 minutes and 3 minutes only, with a single slide as a backdrop. And the slide should not be, it's just a single slide. There's no changing of slides, so on and so forth. And it's supposed to represent what your research is all about. The evaluators are going to be the various, will be people who are expected to be experts in the field. And we will also invite the relevant stakeholders from industry and also from the different ministries as evaluators. And their role is not just to evaluate, it is also to help you perhaps improve it, so that even if you do not get through, then you can use the suggestions and recommendations in future grant applications. Okay? And like I said, okay, so this is the second last slide pretty much. And again, these are the different niche and trust areas. And as I said, we will also be having several pre-proposal clinics and workshops to discuss your proposal, to discuss how you can come up with your impact narrative, and perhaps even a little bit of a training on how to pitch your proposals should you be shortlisted. And this will be organized from the 26th to 28th of July, meaning you have about a month to come up with a proposal. It's usually based on a workshop structure where you come in, have a workshop face to face, but in light of the current development, it's probably going to be online, but we will see what we can do about that. It's most likely going to be online. Okay, so do register for the workshops. This is going to be available from time to time. And finally, oh, sorry, this is for the pitch your proposal. I jumped the gun actually. So here's the rules for the pitch your proposal session. A single static PowerPoint slide. Presentations are not limited to the spoken word, meaning if you don't want to do a normal pitch, you can sing if you want, you can do a rap if you want, anything at all that will bring the message across, as long as it's under 3 minutes. And the presentation must commence from the stage, meaning in this case, there's no stage unless it's really open. There's a chance because it's in November, meaning you can't come from the back of the audience walking to the front. No, everything has to start on the stage. And for each presentation, you will have a short Q&A session. And the diagnosing criteria is, of course, based on content and delivery. Okay? And that pretty much covers the briefing on the IIRG. I think now we will move on to the briefing on the different niche and the different clusters. And I originally wanted to move straight to the FNW, but I'm a bit thirsty. So perhaps I can invite someone else, one of the cluster deans to go up first. Maybe Prof. Hasid from IISS. Are you there, Prof. Hasid?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so yeah, and I will hand over the floor to you, Prof. Hasid.
All right. Thank you very much. Insightful. Let me upload my slides. I have just a few slides, I think 4 or 5. So I'm trying to upload this. Okay. So see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. It's coming. It shows that PowerPoint is not responding. What's happening? Okay, my first slide shows Innovative Industry and Sustainability Science Research Cluster. Is it visible to all of you? Can you see my slide and hear me?
Yes, Prof. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this will be a very brief one. Just a brief introduction to this cluster itself, Innovative Industry and Sustainability Science, those of you who are not familiar with this. So this cluster is one of the 4 clusters that we have. And the main purpose of this cluster is to help you do research on something that will solve the problem which are relevant to industry and society. So that is one of the main themes that we try to propagate. The second one is that we do it in an interdisciplinary manner, because we know the problem of the society, the problem of the industry cannot be solved in most of the cases by just one single discipline. These are too complex. So we encourage you and we require you to work together, bringing colleagues from another field to address those problems. And at the same time, we also encourage you to talk to people outside the university. So that is critical to the success of impact-oriented research. If you do it on your own, then it tends to be, as we have seen, that it's too much academic. Of course, there is nothing wrong being academic. This is, after all, our bread and butter. But in order to create impact, we need to identify a problem which can solve the need of the industry and society. And we cannot do it alone as academic. We need to go outside, talk with people who have the knowledge in the ground, and then we co-create the problem, the problem itself. We co-define the problem. And the success of your IIRG project will depend on this very first stage. If we just read scientific literature and then come up with a problem, then it will be more academic and bookish in nature. IIRG has got a different spirit. Of course, we have to do fundamental research. We have to go deep inside the research theme, but our goal is also to solve a problem. And since we have limited budget, limited time, we cannot spend all the money in every area. Otherwise, the impact will not be there. So the university has decided that it will have some focus. And as Professor Saiful already explained, we have two areas. One is niche and another is trust area. Under IISS, we have two niche areas. It appears that University of Malaya has been doing very well in the area of energy research in terms of academic output, in terms of citation, in terms of number of publications and so on. So university would like to encourage this because energy is also a very important area. So we will continue to fund research in energy. And we also identified that materials is another area which University of Malaya excel and are above the average in the world. So we will again continue to support research in materials. But in line with the main theme and main goal of IIRG, so we need to solve a problem by using our knowledge and research results in energy and materials. In the case of trust areas, so these are the areas where we see that we have some expertise, and these are the areas that is going to have importance, much more importance in the future, and we should try to build our base on these areas or in these areas. And we have identified three based on a survey and some workshop carried out across the university, and those are industrial, Industry 4.0 or Industrial Revolution 4.0, and then water and environment and sustainable living. So for you, those who are willing, we are going to apply for this grant, so you can choose either of these four areas and there will be no preference. So the selection of the proposal will depend on the potential for impact, on the quality, scientific quality of the research area. So I would like to emphasize here, so impact doesn't mean that we compromise on scientific quality. University of Malaya research will be of high scientific quality, so that is granted. So science must be there. In addition, we have to look for potential impact through application, through talking to others. So at this stage, I think I will stop here. So if you have any question later on about how to go about creating this impact related proposal, we will discuss that. So with that, I would stop, Professor Saiful.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Hasib. As mentioned just now, we will save the questions until after all cluster deans have presented. So next, I invite Prof. Stephanie, perhaps. Steph, you there?
Yep, I'm here. Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
I'll wait for Prof. Hasib to stop sharing the screen and then I'll share mine.
Yeah, Prof. Hasib, you need. Okay, cool.
All right, give me a minute. Okay, I believe everyone can see my screen now. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay. If there are any technicalities, just unmute somebody unmute their mic and let me know. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. Hasib. Thank you, Prof. Saiful, for allowing me to share on the social advancement and happiness research clusters niche and thrust areas. So I will move on very quickly. I just want to remind everyone of the objectives of the Irg, which Prof. Saiful already mentioned, but I think it's important and it relates to what I'm going to talk to you about in relation to the social advancement and happiness research cluster. So the keywords here are that we want to strengthen our niche areas and also nurture, grow, develop our emerging thrust areas. So these are the things that we will be looking at in your proposals, and definitely this is an interdisciplinary research. So we don't want fake interdisciplinary research in the sense that you just put together 3 groups or 2 groups who are not really working towards solving the same problem or a common problem. And the third one, which Prof. Hasib mentioned and emphasized, that it has to be impact oriented. So what do all these mean? So let me move on to the cluster, the social advancement and happiness research cluster. So here are our niche areas, which we already have a good grounding across faculties actually. So in terms of culture, heritage and civilization, in behavioral studies, and the areas that we also want to grow is education for the future and smart society. So these are the 4 areas for those of you who are interested in looking at these issues related to these areas. They will cut across lots of areas, disciplines actually. So what does culture and heritage and civilization look at? Well, one, we're looking at obviously, the way of living, our traditions, and this could be anything from cultural norms, languages, behaviors, artifacts. Yeah, so there's a lot of potential here. And we also want to look at preserving cultural heritage, but that doesn't mean just documenting. There's business element here. There might also be archiving in terms of like digitalizing certain things. So there's again the scientific research behind some of our traditional art, for example. So you have to look beyond like culture heritage means something old, something very artsy. It's not, yeah. That is, and in terms of our next niche, which is behavioral studies, is also very, very much related to many things. Yeah, one is we are looking at activities and interactions among human beings, right? But here we are interested in understanding policy. For example, take the current situation we are in. We could look at it very scientifically from a medical point of view and look at, all the increase in the number of COVID positive cases. Yeah, but if you think about why, has that got anything to do with behavior? Has that got anything to do with socioeconomic factors? If you look at all the areas under PKPD now, you will find that in KL, for example, and Selangor, and many in Penang, which are the areas which are sort of like, kena barbed wire, yeah? You will find that a lot of them are in the lower socioeconomic groups. So there is definitely links there. So we want to look at addiction, for example. We could also look at behavioral changes, not just from a health or a scientific point of view. Right. And then we also want to look at, and again, you see these are also related. We want to look at particular behaviors and their relationship to income, wealth, productivity, and also happiness. And this happiness, wellness, mental health is very much sort of, it's been in the limelight. Yeah. So these are, again, issues that cut across disciplines, but we need different disciplines in order to to address common problems. Right, and related again, the third area that we look at under behavioral studies, we look at people's motivations, their activities, psychological processes and interactions. So, we can look at it from a business point of view, we can look at it from a health point of view, and in education. So, in many different aspects. Yeah. So, what are the trusts that we really want to grow? So, we may already have a little, we do have a grounding. I wouldn't say we don't have a grounding, but we want to look at creative and innovative content that goes beyond just turning on your laptop and just, speaking to your students like you do today. And we can look at it across the educational kind of platform or context, from preschool right up to tertiary, and even for adult learning as well. So what are the creative ways of doing things now that we can't do things face to face? Can we bring in AI? Can we bring in digital technology? But what about other things? Yeah. Sorry, I think somebody's mic is on. Okay, right. Next, we also want to look at how do we deliver content. And I think this is actually challenging because even if we look at Malaysia, for example, it is not equal. It is not equal for everyone. So how do we develop new innovative technology beyond what we have now? To actually deliver the content that we want to deliver. Otherwise, it's just the same old, right? Just uploading PowerPoints and just sharing files, and that's not good enough. Especially when you think about self-learning, adult learners, and so on. Okay, and then related again would be, okay, so how do we create applications? So you might be good in the pedagogy, but you need someone to develop the application. You might need someone to market that application in the long run. Otherwise it's just going to be an idea that doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. So these are the thrust and niche areas. Okay. The other one is smart society. And this one is like also related to technology a lot, right? But it again you can look at urban planning, you can look at a smart city, you can look at how AI can actually can be used, right? Data collection can be used to actually not just advertise, but to help you in terms of diagnosing, maybe to diagnose something. It may not be physical health, it could be mental health. So we are perhaps not using the kind of the smart idea enough. We can offer solutions at the end to manage a lot of things. We have to go beyond IR 4.0. Actually, we need to talk about Society 5.0 perhaps, where there's a lot more use of big data to solve problems, to diagnose, and so on. Yeah. Okay. So the second thing is, okay, so the first one was sharing with you the niche and thrust areas of under the cluster, the social advancement and happiness cluster. Now, in terms of interdisciplinary research, I'm not going to go into this very detailed, but we, from social sciences, arts and humanities, we come from so many different areas, so many different disciplines. So even within us, you can see that there is great potential to work together, and not just having to work with the sciences, but you can see that actually it cuts across so many different disciplines. This is just a tip of the iceberg, really. So we can stay in our own disciplines, and some of our disciplines kind of moves between arts, humanities, and so on, and we can still remain here where we speak, even within history and linguistics, or history and digital humanities, we don't really speak the same language. We have different narratives, we have different terminologies and different methodologies and approaches, and then so we just end up doing our own thing, even though we're addressing the same problem, but it just becomes like what Prof. Saiful mentioned earlier, it's just multidisciplinary in the sense everyone's just doing their same thing. But how about if we start getting together and we start to approach the same issue? We want to solve the issue, or maybe not solve it, but address it. And in order to address it, we need to know things from different perspectives. Yeah. And again, the definition, I don't have to tell you, but I just want to remind you that you cannot have three different circles that are not connected. We will be looking at the interconnections and how the connections are being used to address a common problem. Okay, so at the end of the day, what we're looking for, just to remind everyone, and some of you may have just come in, that we're looking for 3 sub-programs with a minimum of 2 different disciplines and a minimum of 2 different faculties. Some faculties are more multidisciplinary within them, such as the arts and social sciences. Some may be more similar. So, you know, you need to think about why you need to use these different disciplines. How will these different disciplines contribute towards answering a common problem? Okay, this is just one of the frameworks. You know, there are many frameworks, but I think it's interesting that it starts with a common problem. You have interdisciplinary teamwork from your conception of your paper, development of your proposal, development of your techniques. And then in terms of the execution, you may be doing it on your own in terms of your data collection, but at the end of the day, we would expect to see some form of synthesis, because after all, you're collectively working towards addressing the same issue. So this is an example of a possible framework that you may want to use. And it's really important that you actually engage your stakeholders from the very beginning of your work. Yeah. Okay, so the objectives, as also mentioned by Prof. Saiful, Prof. Hasib, is to drive impact-oriented research. Again, to emphasize this, that yes, we have our research activities which, help us to get our findings, but then at the end of the day, then we might say, okay, we've promised X number of papers, the usual academic output. We also require some non-academic output, especially in terms of making your research visible, whether it's through having a website, using social media, and of course, we also have the videos for engagement. And then from here, you might have come up with some guidelines. You may have come up with a policy for a smart city or for better accommodation for factory workers. You have a new idea. But okay, that's great. And maybe there is take up. Okay. But at the end of the day, you won't know actually whether from that take up, from the policy being used or put into practice, perhaps this will happen several years later. Maybe it's immediate, maybe not even, 5 years, it could be 10 years, who knows. But you are working towards an impact. At the end of the day, you want these guidelines to be done. You want this kind of proper housing to be done, so that we don't go, I don't know how low we can go in terms of being the worst employers, or in terms of the way we treat migrant workers, for example, right? If you're working in that area. But because you want to change things, and because you want the impact to be that we will go up in the index, we will be seen as better employers. So your outcomes might be policy. Prof. Saiful also mentioned several other examples. So you want to effect positive effects from the policy, yeah, but you may not know. Now, one tip that we found from the previous research, Iirg research grant holders, yeah, is that if you have stakeholder and end user engagement throughout the research purpose, actually from your inception, so from the proposal level, you will have better chance of a more impactful outcome and an actual impact of your research. If you shock sendiri, you just think, this is an issue, I need to solve it. Let's get three different groups together. There is no guarantee that you will get any buy-in from your stakeholders or your end users. They'll be like, we don't want this. We can't afford to build this kind of housing, or we can't use technology here. So at the end of the day, it's kind of a wasted effort if you do not engage with your stakeholders and end users, who may be different parties, from the very beginning. So that is a tip to everyone, which is why I think Prof. Hasib also mentioned that it's important. He's talking about industry. We also can talk about industry. We might be talking about different types of industry, small and medium industries, but we also have community, different schools and so on, yeah, that we can actually look at. The B40 is a very one of the target groups that we are actually looking at. Okay, so you know what impact is. Not going to go into that. Already mentioned the importance of stakeholder and end user engagement throughout your research process in order to get their buy-in and support and work with them. So at the end of the day, right, we are looking at whichever area of impact. If let's say you're working in culture, for example, and civilization, that's the niche area you're looking at. And then your impact might be that, oh, now you have a new way of doing something, producing this traditional, I don't know, kind of handicraft or whatever. But the way that you have done it now is that it's got better logistics. It can go further. You've digitalized it and so on. All right, just coming to an end. I believe we will be sharing the slides later, but this is an example from one of our current, I think the last cycle, 2020 cycle, just to show that there is common aims, and then you can see that there is history here as one of the disciplines, and then you also have digital humanities, I believe, as the other two disciplines, and then also external collaborators, which is really great because at the end of the day, you need their buy-in. And I think that's it for me, and I'll be happy to address questions later when everyone's done. So that is it for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prof. Stephanie.
All right, we'll stop sharing.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I hope again that sheds some light into the niche and trust areas and the SAH. Just to let everyone know, there's some of you, or a lot of us actually, may have problems in identifying new partners, especially for interdisciplinary research. So if you do face that problem, that's what the clusters are for. Come, get in touch with us, and we will do our best to match you up with potential collaborators. Okay. So moving on, I invite Prof. Noran, the current Dean of HWB. Prof. Noran, are you there?
Yes. Thank you, Prof.
Okay.
Saiful. Hang on. Let me upload my slides. Right. It's out. Can everyone see the slides?
Yep. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Great. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. So I'll be talking about the health and well-being research cluster. And this is subsequent following to what Prof. Stephanie as well as Prof. Hasib has talked about the Iirg and Prof. Saiful. So that, again, the aim here is just to emphasize, just to remind everyone, it's interdisciplinary and impactful. So those are the two keywords. So I'll be explaining a bit about the HWB, or Health and Wellbeing Research Cluster niche and trust areas. And just a reminder, basically the niche areas are areas whereby it has identified that UM has strong critical mass and centers of research as well as recognized expertise. So with the, okay, moving on the next slide. With the HWB, we've got two niche areas. That's the aging research as well as cancer. So these two are basically research areas that we feel that we have strong foundation in, that UM has strong foundation in. And just like what Prof. Stephanie has mentioned, it's not just in one particular faculty, it cuts across many faculties. And I'm very sure that many faculties are doing a lot of research into aging as well as cancer research. So on aging research, we know that we are currently living in a time where our population is aging at a rate where it has never been seen before. So this is something relatively new, not so new anymore. Our population is currently an aging society. So we've got roughly about 8 to 9% of Malaysian population being an aging society. And we are moving into an aged society by 2030. So we don't have much time left. So there are a lot of issues in aging research that needs to be looked into. But maybe I would like to also say it here that one of the beauty about older people or older person is that there's no typical older person, right? So older people are heterogeneous, so they're not homogeneous. And actually some 80-year-old would have a lot of physical and mental capacity similar to 20s or 30 years old. So again, the beauty of this looks into a lot of areas of aging that we can focus on. And some of the areas that we are interested in looking at is actually to look at how the interrelationship between health behavior factors, physical factors, psychological factors, cognitive, mental factors, as well as disability or independence. How does all these factors actually contribute to the process of aging, and what changes that occurs in all these factors among the older people? And then what are the determinants of these changes? What are the patterns that we see? And what are the adaptive response towards these changes? So those things are very, very important. In aging research, we are also interested in looking at the enabling environments that supports healthy aging or active aging, and taking into consideration all the technology advancements that we have. Another issue that crops up quite common in aging research is also combating ageism, right? So discrimination on aged population. This is something that we should also look into, and we are interested in looking at. So another niche area that the HWB or Health and Wellbeing Research Cluster looks at is actually in terms of cancer. So cancer, it cuts across a whole wide spectrum. Cancer prevention, diagnosis, treatment, as well as prognosis of cancer, right? And we do know with a lot of medical advancement, there is a large group of cancer survivors, right? So cancer survivorship does have areas where there's a lot of potential for research, right? So optimizing life after cancer, addressing their complex needs throughout the lifespan. These are some of the issues in terms of cancer. And sometimes it's not just among those who actually have cancer, but it's the family, right? So if a parent or a mother or father has cancer, what happens to the child? So again, interrelationship, whether the child drops out of school because of financial issues. So all these interrelationship issues with regards to just one condition can bring about a lot of research areas that we can look into. So those are the two niche areas that we are looking into under the HWB. Now let's look at the trust areas. So these are trust areas which the university would like to push. It's not to say that we don't have these areas. We do have these areas already, and it's just that there are a lot of potential that we can look into in terms of all these three components. So the trust issues under the Health and Wellbeing Research Cluster looks at lifestyle-related diseases. So this interrelates to what Prof. Stephanie just mentioned just now on behaviors, lifestyle behaviors, right? So under lifestyle-related diseases, initially, traditionally, we kind of think about diseases as in a box. You've got the infectious disease, and then you've got the non-communicable disease. But the box is getting gray. It's not easy to demarcate between what is an infectious disease and what is a non-infectious or chronic disease or non-communicable disease, right? COVID has taught us that something that is what we think as infectious in terms of the transmission of disease can also bring about to a condition where it's chronic and long-term. We've heard the term long COVID, for example, right? So long COVID has an impact to a whole huge area that is unknown, and this is a huge component that I think we should be looking at. And it doesn't just belong to one faculty on its own. It's interrelated with many other faculties in the whole university that can actually look into issues, the current issues right now that we're facing, right? So lifestyle related diseases that looks into the quality of life. I've just given a good example of long COVID. What is thought of that if you have already, let's say, survived COVID, or in fact you're clear from COVID, but you still have symptoms, right? So understanding this new current issue of long COVID is something that we really need to look into. Next is the mental health and well-being. Again, just giving COVID as an example, COVID-19 and mental health, COVID-19 and mental well-being, COVID-19 has a lot of, I think COVID-19 is going to change the way we live. So there are a lot of concerns with regards to this, and there are a lot of things that can be looked into, just linking mental health, well-being, and even let's say any population, the impact of lockdowns, the impact of social connection or social isolation. How do we improve on that? How do we combat social isolation? Can we use any creative or community engagement in a creative format? Is there any opportunities, things like online singing groups or online art classes, especially when the community is in a lockdown mode, like what we are in right now? So there are a lot of potentials in terms of research questions that can be addressed under this IIRG, right? I think the sky is the limit, and this is a lot of issues that we can look into, especially looking into creative or engaging in creative resources that we have in the faculty or in the university, right? And then next is of course the innovative healthcare. So these include things like regenerative medicine, precision medicine is another thing, nanomedicine, artificial intelligence, and things like that. So this just goes back to what we have been doing for for a long time. I think as academics, we kind of we're very familiar with doing research, and traditionally when we have research findings, we publish our findings, and most of the time our task or our role just ends at publication. But this is a different way of looking at research. So research is basically something that we're trying to solve a problem, a real problem. So our role need to change, and our role now is as agents of change, or you can call it as an influencer. So the idea of doing this is like what Prof. Steph has mentioned just now. It's very, very important for you to engage with the stakeholders even at the start of your research project, because then you will be able to know what is it that the stakeholders are interested in, what is it that they want, what kind of problems or what kind of issues people are having or going through. So recognizing that our role now is as agents of change, this is what one of the spirit of Impactful or IIRG grant is trying to do, right? So, yep, it's about involving the communities and stakeholders in generating the evidence and making sure that our research is actually meaningful and can help to facilitate action or answer research question. So the keywords would be engagement and research or science communication, communicating and things like that, right? Yep, I think that's all from me. Thank you, Prof. Saiful. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Noran. And finally, a bit from myself again. Salah share. Sorry, wrong one. Okay. Oh, sorry. All right. Can you see my slide? All right. Cool. Right. Okay. So a bit about the frontiers of the natural world, or FNW, Mission Thrust Area. Excuse the line. I accidentally conteng just now. So basically, the FNW, or Frontiers of the Natural World, has traditionally looked at fundamental research. Okay, in other words, laying the foundations for applied research. Before you can perform any form of applied research, it is necessary first to gather the basic information about the technology you're trying to move forward, the basic science behind it. Okay, so if you Google fundamental research, it will probably come up with something like this. Anything that is fueled by curiosity and attempts to gain new knowledge and insights that are not always directly applicable or immediately useful. Okay. At first glance, that may be something of a contradiction with the spirit of IRG, where we aim for impact. But as Prof. Hasib has rightly pointed out, good impact is not at the expense of good basic fundamental research, right? So moving on, if you look at the role of the university today, it's not only about gaining new knowledge, it's not only about coming up with new insights or new ideas. We now are expected to carry out our social responsibility and also carry out transfer of knowledge. And this knowledge has to be relevant to society, which in turn requires us as academics to anticipate what the society's needs are. If our work is simply for the sake of curiosity, then we will not be able to have real world impact. Granted that yes, fundamental research is the basis of it is curiosity, but we must remember that we have responsibility to the society and also to our funders. And remember that the majority of our funding comes from the government. As such, it is our responsibility to have real, meaningful, real-world impact. Okay, basic research is very useful. This is actually a quote from Luc Montagnier, 2008 Nobel Prize winner in the field of physiology or medicine. And he said that basic research is very useful, but it should be more geared towards application than it was before. He's saying, yes, you definitely have to do basic research, but there must be a clear use for this information. It should not be just knowledge for the sake of knowledge. And therefore, for FNW, we look at fundamental research mark 2, which means it is not only focused on gaining new knowledge. We're still all for that, but in carrying out research from the onset, you must be clear where the knowledge can be applied and how it can be applied and who will benefit for it. And to be able to do this, for the most part, you will have to engage in interdisciplinary research most of the time. Not saying always, but most of the time. Okay, so if for the niche and thrust areas, I hope that's clear why, despite the fact it's fundamental research, it's still expected to be impact-oriented and also interdisciplinary. Now, for the niche and thrust areas, ours is quite simple. There is only one niche and one thrust areas. Again, this is based on the workshop that was done way back in 2018. For the niche areas, nation-spike technology with the ultimate aim of driving drug discovery. For those who are aware about drug discovery research or lesser product research for that matter within Universiti Malaya, we literally have published thousands of papers on the subject, on new compounds, things that we claim to have anti-cancer properties, antiviral properties, antimicrobial properties, and yet very few or none at all actually achieve the point where it actually directly contributes to patient care. Usually it's stuck somewhere in the beginning where we have the idea and we have done some basic research in identifying compounds with activities. The idea of the niche area for FNW is to move research, which a lot of them are stuck here, more to the right side of this timeline, where we hope to finally characterize what or how the functions of the industrial products are. Can we modify them to make better? And move it towards preclinical trials and even clinical trials for that matter. I'll give you an example. We have identified a compound and you know that it has anti-cancer properties. So the next step will be to actually identify what pathways it affects, how it works, does it really work as an anti-cancer drug? You may want to turn it into interdisciplinary research by including somebody from the computer science background. You can come up with modeling on ways how to improve the delivery system, for example, or what targets you can look at. You may even want to look at the actual delivery systems, for example, the use of liposomes, so on and so forth. So in other words, if you expand that, the process of drug delivery, you can actually include the following different activities and the many, many different disciplines associated with it. For example, in the discovery process itself, this is all the things which will be done, and they will include people from engineering, from molecular biology, from cellular biology, from the computer sciences and the bioinformatics, so on and so forth. The development process is even more complex and will involve many, many, many different people. Okay, from many, many different disciplines. So that's the niche area. As for the thrust areas, it's curiosity-driven fundamental research. Like I said, the very basis of fundamental research is that it's curiosity-driven. You can let your imaginations run wild in this. There is no limit. Think outside the box. In fact, forget the box. There is no box, anything at all. But with the following provisos, they must be fundamental, the research must be interdisciplinary, and it must be very, very impactful. But like I said, the impact is not expected immediately at the end of your respective research programs, but rather at you must be clear who, how, or what the impact is going to be. Okay? So mine is pretty much done there. So thank you very much. So I will now open the floor for questions. Okay. I have 3 people who have raised their hands for quite a while. So I suppose I'll start with them. Can I have Prof. Venga Desmaran?
Yes, Prof. Good morning. Good evening, Prof. Prof, I
Yes,
just want
yes.
to check for the IIRG, for the application, research officers can do the application, or it is open only for academics?
At the moment, okay, can you turn up your mic? Professor Vegas. Okay. At the moment, the research officers can be the co-researcher, but for principal investigator, it's going to have to be the academics. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Prof. Thank you.
Thanks. You're welcome. Okay. I see also Prof. Habib Reza. You have raised your hand for quite a while.
Good evening, Prof. I'm
Yes.
Dr. Hamid Reza from
Yeah,
Faculty
okay.
of Engineering.
Right.
I have a question regarding the sub-programs. So may I know for the linkage or the linkage between the sub-programs? So can, for example, if we have 3 sub-programs in one main program, can 2 of them help and contribute towards the third one, which the ultimate goal of the main program is there? So, or each of them should be in a circle and contribute to each other? Because the last cycle that we actually applied, so one of the main questions is that it's the linkage is not clear for the the assessor. So I want to know whether all these 3 sub-programs should contribute to each other, or it doesn't matter that, for example, 2 of them contribute the third one, which ultimately actually had towards the the main program. This is the first question, and the second one, for example, we are allowed to choose one either niche or trusted areas. So can we choose 2 trusted areas for one main program, or just should be one?
No, the niche and thrust area, you just choose one, meaning for the entire program.
Okay, but let's say, for example, if we already chosen one trusted area, can trusted area be 2 or should be 1 as well?
Just one thrust area. The thrust area is referring to the main program.
Okay.
Meaning the 3 sub-program falls under one program. And when you say thrust or niche area, it's referring to that program, not the 3 sub-programs. Okay? And with regards to the interlinking, the spirit of the IRG is that you are trying to solve a problem or come up with a better solution by having 3 different projects working on a single problem. Okay? It would be good if you can show that all 3 are contributing towards a common solution. a common problem, actually, a solution to a common problem. Whether or not they must interact left, right, I mean 1, 2, 1, 3 or 2, 3 like that, it depends on how you present it. If it's moving towards a single solution and it contributes to one of the programs and you write it properly, it should still be fine.
Okay, and the last, just last question, the additional requirements, the additional documents that you're, yes, it's supposed to be provided after the ending of the project, am I right? The video, the compulsory video.
Yeah, at the end of it. Okay.
Thank you very much, Prof.
All right, thank you. We have Professor Chong Hui Fen. Your hands raised.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah,
Okay.
hi.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, I can.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to ask, for contract staff, academic staff, are we allowed to apply for this one?
Say again, we are what?
For contract academic staff.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Yes, you are allowed, but you will need to have a co-researcher who is permanent lah, just in case that you do not get extension or something like that.
All right, thank you. That means I can still apply as PI, is it?
Yes.
All right. And then one more thing, about the, continuing the previous person who asked you about trust and niche. Now, let's see if one project, it hits probably more than one niche or trust, wouldn't it be better?
Not really. We want you to go for one niche and trust area. You have to be specific because, I mean, we don't want you to be like all over the place and not entirely clear what you're going for. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so cool. Trust, we can only choose one, and then niche also choose one, is it?
Or, no. You can choose one. Meaning, let's say you're going for IISS, and the Prof Hasib, and they have, let's say, 3 niche and 3 thrust. You should only choose one of those. Either you choose one from the niche or one from the thrust, not both.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you. Dr. Nasrin, you have your hands raised.
Yes. Good afternoon, Dr. Saiful. I think just now Chong asked about the contract staff. I'm wondering the main leader could be a contract staff or just a PI.
Say again.
Previous
the what?
For IRG, the main leader can be a contract staff or should be one of the permanent staff from UM.
If I'm not mistaken, now just to confirm, it's only for the contract staff can be a PI, right? Provided that they have a co-researcher who is a permanent staff, right? Yeah.
Yes, Prof.
Yes. Okay. So Dr. Nazrin, I confirm, a contract staff academic can be a PI, but you must have a permanent staff as one of your co-researchers within your sub-projects. Okay?
All right.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Next, Ranganaya Kidevi.
Yeah, I just want to find out if the sub-projects, 3 sub-projects, can the PI be from the same faculty, but then within the research there are researchers from different faculty. Is it okay to be that way?
You mean all 3?
Yeah, all 3 PIs from the same, no.
No, has to be 2 different faculties, 2 different disciplines.
Okay.
Okay, all right, cool. Louis Yu Tip, I hope I pronounced that properly. Louis Yu.
Sutip.
Sutip. Okay, cool. Right.
Yes, I just want. I want to ask about the proposal clinic that you talked about. That was going to be held sometime later this month. Do we come to the clinic with a complete proposal, or is it okay to come with an idea?
Okay. Actually, it will be preferable if you come with at least a semi-complete proposal, but it's okay if it's not yet complete, if you have a concept paper, something like that, because the idea of the clinic is to have a discussion on trying to improve and see whether it can fit within the grants that you're going to be applying for. So it's okay.
Right.
But get it as ready as possible, in other words.
Right. Maybe more than just a concept paper, but maybe 2 or 3 sub-programs, more or less. filled in the proposal and all that, but maybe we might ask for your help or the help of some of the cluster leads to get the people to come on board from other disciplines, something like that. Yeah? That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Muhammad Farid.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. About the proposal clinic as well, how do we book for the session, because it's a first come first serve basis?
Usually we get oversubscribed, but we will accommodate all most of the time. Yeah, so look for the announcement and just register. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Renuka. You there, Renuka? Renuka. Okay, we'll skip. Cheong Hui Fen.
Yeah, sorry, it's me again. Yeah, I'm a bit confused by the PI thing. I thought it's only one project and one PI. So does that mean that we can have more than one PI in that project?
No, okay, the structure is program, and then in each program, there's going to be 3 sub-programs or 3 sub-projects, how you call it, it's the same thing. And there should be one PI for the entire program, in other words, a program leader, and each of the sub-projects should have one PI. You get me?
Yeah. So let's see if we want to claim KPI, so everyone will be PI then, is it?
The 3 will be considered as PI for 1 and 1 and 1, yes.
Okay, then it will be good. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yes, I know. All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome. Renuka, you still there? Pun tak dapat lagi. Okay, Kumar?
A while to unmute.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
Okay. Yes. Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so it's I'm a little bit confused about the process by which we try to bring people into the cluster. I mean the collaboration.
Yeah.
So I have a potential project which I'm collaborating on with somebody in industry.
Okay.
And
cool.
the idea has come out from them as a need that they have expressed.
Okay.
Now, there's certainly a segment that applies to my faculty, I mean the law faculty, but I think that there's also scope for perhaps engineering or behavioral studies, for them also to participate. So to even come up with the concept note, I will already need collaboration and interest from these other disciplines.
Yes.
So how do I sort of get this started?
Meaning what? You do not have any
I don't know people in the other faculties.
Right. You will have to get to know people from the other faculties. But like I said, what you can do is you're in the law faculty, right?
Yeah.
So the law faculty, depending on the kind of work, if it's policy and all that, it's probably going to be understaffed. But if it's going to be involving engineering, so on and so forth, it may also include Prof. Hasib under IISS. What you can do is you can contact the research class itself. But first, I would like to suggest that you do have a look at UM experts and identify people you think you will need. And if you have problem contacting them or you think you need help, then we can try and matchmake you with people who we think may be able to be collaborators with you. Okay?
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Kumar?
Hi. Thank you very much, Prof. Saiful, for your briefing. My question is, if I have a collaborator from education, I'm from medicine, so which ceiling applies, the 300,000 or the 200,000?
Depends on which niche and thrust and which cluster you're going for. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Another question. I understood from you that if you are a program leader, you can be a PI of one of the sub-programs. Is that right?
Yeah, you are expected to be one of the PIs.
Okay. Yeah. Can you also put your name as a co-investigator in a different sub-program?
Technically, yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Prof, we have several. Prof, we have several
Yeah.
questions in chat panel.
Oh no, can you read them up? I don't know which one you're referring to. Can you just read up? Okay, I'll go to the chats sekejap eh. Which one, Yana? From the top ke?
From the top, Lim Kok Sing, I guess that you already addressed this question before
Okay, that
in your
one is the
presentation.
answer. Yeah.
The existing IRG holder can apply or not.
Yep.
Next is from Krishna. Currently holding position as director in another public university for 2 years.
Macam kenal eh.
Am I still eligible to apply for IRG as I still hold VK5 in UM? Thank you.
Okay, technically speaking, based on that, on our current rules and regulations, which we overlook this, yes, you can. But the question is, can you manage when you're not here? How are you exactly going to be managing the research when you're not within campus? How are you ensure? But if you can overcome those issues, then technically speaking, since you're still staff in UM, yes, you can. Okay. Okay, so another question from Muhammad Abdul. Can the sub-program come from the same faculty? No, they must be at least from 2 different faculties. I think already, yeah, classical already answered. Nur Azmi, Salah. Contract, yes, but like I said, for contract staff, you will have to have a permanent staff as one of your co-researchers. Yeah. Siapa ni? Can existing IRG holder apply? Our grant is going to end by November 2021. Can we apply again in the next cycle once the grant is ended? Again, like I said, technically speaking, yes. Yeah. But the spirit of IIRG is to allow you to start something new and from that move forward and apply other bigger grants. So if you are going to be perpetually applying for IIRG, although technically yes, you can, it is not in the spirit of the grant. Okay. Yes, question about the technical problems. What 11,000, sorry, limited to 30,000 per year for each program or sub-program? It's actually for each sub-program. But do remember that the limit was only 300,000 ringgit per year. So divided by 3, that's only about 50,000 per year per sub-program. So if you push it to 30,000 for your 1100, then you only left with 20,000. Okay. Yeah, that one, Sutip already answered that one. That one is also answered, Mazlina. Okay, Mazlina asked, how can we confirm which niche or trust program the project will be? That is up to you. You should be able to understand which niche or trust your program fits best. Don't want to apply for the wrong area. Okay, don't worry about that. You will not be disqualified for applying for the wrong niche and trust areas. What we will do is sometimes if we feel that your niche area that you applied for does not suit your proposal, we will suggest that you change the niche and trust area. So don't worry about that. Okay. Kasturi, can the current IRG already answered? Zahira, can the postdoc research fellow already answered? You can come in as a co-researcher but not as a PI. Krishna, holding position director, that one already answered. Can 2 sub-programs, as a Subhashini, can 2 sub-programs be from the same faculty for one sub-program, PS rather than faculty? Yes, because the minimum requirement is 2 faculties and from different areas of research. So as long as your PIs come from 2 different faculties, then you are okay. And you have follow-up question, can sub-program PIs be from different universities? Absolutely not, because this is intended for UM staff. But they can come in as co-researchers. Okay, cool. Right, so back to those who have raised their hands. Let me see. We have Nasrin. Yes, Nasrin. What is there another question? Yes.
Prof. Saiful, I have just a suggestion because we know for a long time we are, I mean, me myself, I'm working in UM with different faculties and very multidisciplinary projects. I believe I'm always working for a specific people. Just a suggestion to a cluster, is it possible we come out with kind of our concept, then at least we know who else, as one of our colleague just now, Renuka, if I'm not mistaken, from law faculty was mentioning, for example, she doesn't know to work with who. Perhaps we explore other colleagues, other collaborators from other faculties. If cluster can help us to matchmaking and find new partners, because always I'm using same partner from, let's say, Faculty of Computer Science. I think that would be very amazing. Then we find a new people, new group to work, and explore more and learn more from each other.
Yes, Nasrin, that's the whole idea actually of the IRG program. And like I said, if you have issues or problems in matching up with the right people, just get in touch with us. But do reach out because we don't know who needs new partners. So just let us know and we'll see what we can do. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I lost it. Rosaida? Rosaida, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Technical question. If someone were to enter sabbatical, any restrictions to apply for this?
You can't.
Leave. Pardon?
Tak boleh kan? Yana, tak jap lagi check. Yana, tak boleh kan? Yana?
Yes, Prof.
Tak boleh kan?
Kalau sabbatical within the country, kita consider, tapi back to researchers, how can you manage the research?
Yeah, because we are just around anyway. So is that an issue? We'll just be around.
Yeah, within the country.
It's going to be local, yeah.
Yeah, within the country should be okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Gokula, Dr. Goku.
Hi, Prof. Good evening. Thank you for the briefing. I may have missed this, so I just want to clarify. Is there a great position on who can be the program leader, for example, AP and above?
No.
So
anybody can be the program leader. It's fine.
All right.
There's no restriction.
Thank you. My next question is, in the slide, it says for each sub-program, we must have a minimum of 1 RA.
Yes.
So if you have just three, that means 3 RAs. Is that correct?
Yes.
They cannot be using for two sub-programs.
No, cannot.
No. All right.
Because one of the objective is also human capital development. So yeah.
Okay.
All right.
My third question is rather cagey. If we have a concept and idea, right? Our track record is not as strong. Would IRG panel look at the track record of everyone involved? Or
yes. The idea of the track record, one of the other spirits of IRG is to foster mentoring or partnership between the younger researchers and the older. That's why there's no restriction as to the PI. What we do look at is the strength of the team rather than the strength of the PI alone. Meaning, if you have a senior professor as one of your team members who has a fantastic track record, you're fine.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, siapa lagi Rosaida?
Sorry, tak put down hand pula.
Oh, okay. Ahmed Reza, you still there?
Yes, Prof. Yes, just one more question. Regarding the allocation for each sub-program, can exceed more than 100K?
Yes, it doesn't matter as long as the total amount for the entire program does not exceed 300K.
And the last question regarding the well-being cluster for the medical part. So who you consider as the stakeholders? Because you just mentioned that about the health ministry or government.
I invite Prof. Noran to answer the question. Thank you. Noran.
Prof. Saiful, dah penat. Thanks for answering all the questions. Well, I guess to the person who's asking the question, it depends on what is the scope of the research, right? It need not just be the Ministry of Health. I mean, the obvious one for health is always the Ministry of Health, but sometimes it also cuts across many other ministries. For example, the Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita, Keluarga dan Masyarakat, it involves the community. So really, it depends on your research question, actually.
Actually, sorry, Prof. Let's we are working on the pregnant women. So
Right.
what would the potential stakeholders here?
Things like LPPKN, that is under the Kementerian Pembangunan Wanita, Keluarga dan Masyarakat. If it's a pregnancy, obvious one would of course be the Ministry of Health. In fact, under the Ministry of Health, there will be multiple disciplines. You have the public health as well as the clinical component, right? So again, really it depends on the research that you're looking at.
And
if it involves the school, then Ministry of Education is also part of the, if it's a pregnancy among young or adolescent, then schools are also involved as a stakeholder.
Yeah, in the graphical abstract, so do we need to highlight the stakeholders as well or no?
Yes, please do. That'll be a good start to highlight, identify the stakeholders, at least the slide that Prof. Saiful mentioned on pathway to impact, right? So we know that you have already identified, and whether there has been any communication with regards to the stakeholders that you have done, that'll be one of the good things to do as well.
Okay, many thanks. Thank you very much.
All the best. Back to you, Prof. Saiful.
I just lost the names. Hijaz, saya tanya tadi ke? Hijaz?
Sorry, I haven't asked any question yet. So,
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So this grant, like all grants at UM, we cannot buy equipment, but can we put in the budget cost to send our materials for processing at a workshop? Is it okay?
How do you mean processing? Can you clarify?
So I'm planning to do something in materials science lah.
Right.
So maybe we need to machine our components, but if the equipment is not available at UM, can we?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
And outside.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay. Cool. Secondly, about external collaborators and condition. So like I have a potential collaborator for Monash Union. So there's no condition lah. I mean,
no, there are no conditions as long as yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Hijaz. Muhammad Shazril.
Yes, Prof. Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Prof, for the briefing. Just ada satu question, Prof, about the salary, about the human capital development. You mentioned that for each sub-program, you should have a minimum of 1 RA.
Yep.
Okay. And then I go through the guideline, and it stated that the ceiling for that vote 11,000, which is under salary, and in which is 30,000 ringgit per year.
Yep.
That one applied to the program or to the sub program?
To the sub program.
To the sub
Meaning in total there's 90,000 lah.
Okay.
If you have 3 sub programs, yeah. Okay.
Right. So for the second question, Prof. Sorry.
Yeah,
the
sure.
external collaborator, do we need to actually to send the names to the cluster for approval, or just you can point anyone that is
we don't require any approval, but you should at least include some sort of letter stated from them saying that they agree to be your external collaborator. It can be just a screenshot of your emails with them or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So it's no need to get LOA or letter of acceptance or surat niat from them.
No, not for this one. No.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm looking at the messages. Any more questions from? I didn't. Nasrin again. Hi, Nasrin. Yes.
Because I'm not able to write in a chat room, and I keep popping them into my mind. And one thing is so important to me to understand the definition of stakeholders at this point. Is it only back to the local stakeholders, or can we engage international stakeholders as well?
At the moment, there is no real restriction as to the stakeholders that you will engage. But like anything else, preferably whatever solution you have should be for Malaysia first.
Yeah.
And then it can be expanded to the international stage. But like I said, there is no limitation. For example, if you're going to a drug discovery and let's say suddenly, I don't know, Merck or Pfizer gets interested, then by all means, go ahead and engage them.
Okay, all right. That's it. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. We have no more raised hands. I'll have a look at the chat.
Regarding stakeholders,
Yes,
Prof.
please.
Can I just add?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Just to remind all here in IIRG, by stakeholders, we mean stakeholders outside academia. So your collaborator in another university, national or international, will not be considered as stakeholders. People from industry, from ministry, from agencies, from NGO, those will be your stakeholders.
Thanks, Prof. Hasib.
Thanks, Prof. Hasib. Thank you for reminding. I also forgot. Yeah, it has to be people outside of academics, come in as collaborators, not stakeholders. Okay. Any specific questions that you want to address to the respective deans? Anything specific to any of the other clusters with regards to, I don't know, niche or thrust areas or anything like that? Yes, Huifen.
Yeah,
your
hi,
hands?
Prof.
Hi.
Yeah, would like to ask about the stakeholders again, because my research is about helping university students in their, in employment, for example. Okay.
All right.
So wouldn't it be my stakeholder will be the university and the university students, isn't it?
It would be your university students and also the potential employers as well, I would think.
Yeah.
Because you want to be able to give to the employers the best possible products or, well, also graduates from the university, right? So they can also be your stakeholders.
Yeah.
It's not just the university itself, but the students and the companies in which you're going to be placing the students later on.
So let's say like university students and university, can they consider as one of the stakeholders as well, although they are academic?
Technically speaking, Prof. Hasib, what do you think?
Maybe, yeah.
Yes. So it's a tricky question. So it will depend from project to project how you define that. So hearing what you are talking about your project, obviously university students could be your stakeholders, if I understand you correctly. But we would like to see this going beyond academia as well. So as Prof. Saiful already mentioned, that look for somebody outside, the employers, how they can benefit, expand it. So if it is just academia, your student and your professors, then it may not be well received by the reviewers.
All right, thank you so much.
If I could just add, perhaps
Yes,
Huifen, you can contact me directly and I can have a chat with you to clear up some of the concerns or questions that you have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Steph.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, Sitip. Sitip, is there?
Got to unmute. Yeah, I just want to ask whether there's a limit to the number of sub-programs that can be parked under one program.
Minimum 3, maximum no limit.
No limit, thank you.
But remember that the maximum allocation per program is only 300,000 lah. So the higher the number of your sub-programs, the smaller will be a slice of pie be. Yep. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Alamak, ada lagi kejap Chan, somebody raised their hands. Chan Mun Chiang.
Good afternoon, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly.
Yes, I want to ask about research output. So if let's say we have 3 sub-programs, are we expecting one research output from each sub-program, or can we say we combine them to produce one publication, for example, one big publication, or should we break it down into 3 smaller papers based on the program?
Let me see. I can't remember. Yana, could you remind me? We're talking about the amount of funding per paper, right? We're not talking about every sub-program, right, Yana?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, so it actually depends on how much funding you receive. So for example, if you receive 300,000 for the program, is it 50K for paper, Yana? Saya tak ingat dah.
Kita dah tak letak by peruntukan. That's why
Okay.
we said that they have to select one output from academic output and one from non-academic output.
Yeah. So in other words, it's okay if it's the entire program's work that is published in a single big paper, rather than breaking it down to smaller number of papers, which won't have that much impact. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We have about 6 minutes. I think we can end it here, but if there are any further questions, you can always email the cluster. Perhaps any of the cluster deans would like to add something, Professor?
Just about the niche and trust areas. We had a couple of questions on this. Just a clarification. Sometimes you will find that the niche and trust areas, they may have some overlap, but you don't have to worry much about it. For instance, in the case of IISS, we have materials and energy. We also know that there are research areas where they deal with materials for energy. So in such a case, probably you would find the dominant niche or trust areas and identify that in your proposal. But feel free to work with people on energy. So there will be some aspects, so that's not a problem. Just find the dominant one and mention that in the proposal.
Staff, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, nothing, but I welcome if anyone has any particular questions related to the areas that I mentioned, the niche and trust, please do email the cluster. They can forward to me, yeah? Or it's just Stephanie with an F at um.edu.my, so very easy.
Thanks, Steph. Prof. Noran, anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
Just wishing everyone all the best. Put in your application. We look forward to all the proposals. Tak sabar ni.
Okay, I think we're pretty much done for the day. So thank you everyone for your interest. I see a lot of people actually today, much higher than I expected, almost 300 people. So thank you, and hopefully we'll meet each other again in the pre-proposal workshops and the clinics. So thank you very much. Stay safe and get writing. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.